Most people believe the kingdom of God is something that comes after death or at the end of time, somewhere beyond reach. You have probably heard it described as a future reward, a distant place waiting at the end of a long journey. But the earliest recorded sayings of Jesus suggest something far more unsettling. Not that it will come one day, but that it is already here, and somehow we are the ones not seeing it. The text begins without ceremony, almost quietly, as if it expects to be overlooked. The kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. No explanation follows. No instructions are given. Just a statement that seems to collapse distance itself. If the kingdom is inside you, then it is not something you travel toward. If it is outside you as well, then it is not hidden in some secret inner realm either. It surrounds and permeates, both intimate and infinite at once. This is not a place you arrive at. It may be something you begin to notice. If you have ever felt like something sacred was just out of reach, just beyond your current life, consider this. What if that feeling was not pointing to distance, but to misdirection? Notice how often meaning feels like it belongs somewhere else, in the future, in another state of being, in someone more worthy. But this is where it changes, because the next saying removes even that possibility of escape. If those who lead you say, "See, the kingdom is in the sky," then the birds will precede you. If they say it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. There is something quietly disruptive in this. It does not attack authority directly, yet it undermines it completely. Any claim that places truth somewhere else, somewhere distant or unreachable, is gently exposed as incomplete. If the birds can reach it before you, then it is not meant to be found that way. If the fish already inhabit it, then it was never hidden in depth or height. The pattern becomes difficult to ignore. Every direction you are told to look takes you further away from what is already present. You may have sensed this without words, a moment where everything felt meaningful for no clear reason. Not because something changed externally, but because something in your perception shifted, even briefly. This is where a subtle but powerful reframing begins to emerge. The problem is not that the kingdom is hidden. It is that we may have been trained to search for it in ways that ensure we never recognize it. Not through malice or deception, but through habit, through inherited assumptions about where meaning should exist, outside, above, ahead. And then, something unexpected appears in the logic of the text. If the kingdom is neither in the sky nor in the sea, neither in the future nor in some distant realm, then the barrier is no longer distance. It becomes perception. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. The statement returns, but it feels different now, less like a mystery, more like a mirror. Notice this in your own experience. How often do you overlook what is directly in front of you because you are expecting something more, something clearer, more obvious, more dramatic? This is where it becomes unsettling, because if nothing is actually missing, then what you have been waiting for may not be something that arrives. It may be something that becomes visible. And that raises a question that the text does not answer directly, but seems to leave hanging in the air. If the kingdom is already here, then what exactly is preventing you from seeing it? You've been taught that change comes from effort, that if you refine yourself enough, correct enough flaws, and move far enough from who you are now, something higher will finally meet you. But these sayings suggest something far more disorienting. Not that you must become something else, but that you are divided from something that is already yours. A line appears almost quietly, but it carries a strange weight. When you make the two one, you will enter the kingdom. It does not say when you become better. It does not say when you achieve purity. It points instead to something split, two, not yet one. If that is true, then the barrier is not distance and not time. It may be separation within your own experience. You may have sensed this without words, a subtle feeling that part of you is fully engaged in life, speaking, reacting, moving through routines, while another part remains just behind it all, watching. Not interfering, just present. The saying does not explain what these two are, but it invites a possibility that what you call yourself is not a single, unified thing, but something layered, a surface and a depth, a voice and a silence beneath it. But this is where it changes, because the next line removes any sense that this is just observation. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not bring it forth, what you do not have will destroy you. This shifts everything. What is within you is not described as optional or symbolic. It becomes essential, something that must be brought into awareness, or it remains concealed in a way that shapes your life without your consent. If you've ever felt like you are acting out a version of yourself that does not fully match what you sense inside, this may feel familiar, as if something real is present but unexpressed. Not absent, just unrecognized. Notice this in your own experience. Moments where you hesitate to say something true. Moments where you feel a quiet resistance, not from fear of others, but from something deeper that knows you are not aligned with yourself. This is where the meaning begins to unfold in a different direction. Making the two one may not be about blending opposites into perfection. It may be about removing the distance between what you are and what you allow yourself to see. And then something unexpected appears in this interpretation. If what is within you can save you, then nothing external can replace it. Not belief, not imitation, not even understanding in the usual sense. This introduces a different kind of responsibility. Not one imposed from outside, but one that emerges from within. The responsibility to recognize what is already present. This is where identity begins to shift. No longer something fixed that you improve over time, but something layered that you uncover. The surface is not false, but it is incomplete. The depth is not hidden on purpose, but it is often overlooked. Transformation, then, is not about becoming someone new. It may be about seeing what has always been there, but was never fully acknowledged. And this is where it becomes unsettling. Because if something within you holds that kind of significance, then the question is no longer whether it exists. It becomes why it remains unseen. What keeps it separate? What keeps the two from becoming one? And then something begins to emerge from the silence between the sayings. If something is hidden within you, then perhaps it is not only hidden, perhaps it is also being obscured. Not by force, not by anything obvious, but by something subtle. Patterns of thought, habits of perception, ways of seeing that feel natural, but may not be. And that leads to a question that quietly changes everything. If what you need is already within you, then what exactly is preventing you from bringing it forth? If truth is already within you, why does it feel so distant? Why does something that is described as present remain just out of reach, as if separated by an invisible barrier? A saying emerges that feels almost too simple to carry the weight of that question. Recognize what is before your eyes, and what is hidden will be revealed to you. It does not tell you to search deeper. It does not point you somewhere else. It directs your attention to what is already in front of you, as if the problem is not absence, but recognition. This shifts the entire landscape. The world is no longer something to escape from, nor something to distrust completely. Instead, it becomes something that may be seen incorrectly. If you've ever looked directly at something and still not truly seen it, this begins to feel less abstract. A familiar face that reveals something new after years. A pattern in your life that only becomes clear once you step back. The information was always there, but it did not register. But this is where it changes, because the next line removes any sense that hidden things are meant to remain that way. There is nothing hidden that will not become manifest. This does not describe a secret being guarded. It suggests a process, that what is unseen is not permanently concealed, but waiting for a shift in how it is perceived. And then something unexpected appears. If everything hidden can become visible, then the barrier is not a locked door. It may be something far more subtle, a kind of filtering that shapes what you notice and what you ignore. You may have sensed this without naming it, the way your attention is drawn to certain things automatically, while other details fade into the background, the way meaning is assigned before you consciously decide it. This is where the idea of distortion begins to take form, not as something external imposing itself on you, but as a pattern that operates quietly within perception itself, almost like a lens that you did not choose, but have learned to look through. In some traditions, this kind of influence is described in symbolic language as forces that shape perception, not necessarily as literal beings, but as structures of thought and expectation that organize how reality appears. Notice this in your own experience. How quickly you interpret a situation, how instantly something feels familiar or unfamiliar, safe or threatening, meaningful or empty. These reactions often happen before you have time to question them. Reality, then, begins to feel layered. There is what is present, and there is how it is seen. The two are not always the same. And this leads to a reframing that can feel quietly unsettling. The illusion is not that reality itself is false. It is that your perception of it might be incomplete. This is where it becomes unsettling, because if perception is shaped in ways you are not fully aware of, then everything built on that perception becomes uncertain. Not just what you see, but how you understand yourself. If the sense of who you are is formed through the same patterns that filter reality, then identity itself may be part of that distortion. Not entirely false, but not entirely clear either. And yet, the text does not present this as a trap without exit. It continues to point in a direction that feels almost too immediate to notice. Recognize what is before your eyes. Not change it, not escape it. Recognize it. As if clarity does not come from adding something new, but from seeing what is already there without the usual interference. This suggests something subtle but powerful, that the same awareness which notices distortion is not itself distorted, that there is a way of seeing that exists prior to the filters. If you've ever experienced a brief moment where everything felt clear without effort, where you were not trying to understand but simply seeing, you may recognize this. It does not last long. It slips away quickly. But while it is there, nothing feels hidden. And that raises a question that begins to move beyond the problem itself. If distortion can be seen, even for a moment, then something in you is already beyond it. So what is that part of you that can see without distortion, and why does it remain so difficult to stay there? What if no one can give you the truth, not because it is hidden or guarded, but because it was never outside of you to begin with? What if everything you have been waiting to receive cannot be handed to you in any form that lasts? A saying appears that feels almost like a quiet promise, but also a challenge. Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. It does not say whoever believes them. It does not say whoever repeats them or defends them. It points to something more direct. Finding the interpretation suggests an experience, not an agreement. Something that happens within you, not something you adopt from outside. If that is true, then understanding is not passive. It is not given. It is discovered in a way that changes the one who sees it. If you have ever felt a moment of clarity that did not come from thinking, but from suddenly seeing something as it is, you may recognize the difference. A moment where everything feels obvious without effort. Not because new information appeared, but because something shifted in how you perceived what was already there. But this is where it changes, because the next phrase seems almost detached from everything that came before. Become passers-by. At first, it sounds like withdrawal, as if the instruction is to step away from life, to disengage, to observe without participating. But placed next to everything else, it begins to suggest something more subtle. To become a passerby may not mean leaving the world. It may mean no longer being held by the way it appears. You are still here, still moving, speaking, acting, but something in you is no longer fully identified with every thought, every reaction, every surface impression. Notice this in your own experience. Moments where you are fully present, yet not entangled. Where something happens, but it does not define you in the same way. As if there is space between what occurs and how you respond. And then, something unexpected appears in this state. If you are no longer completely absorbed in appearances, then perception itself begins to change. Not forced, not controlled, but loosened. This is where awakening begins to take a different form. Not as an achievement, not as a final state, but as recognition. Something that can happen in an instant, yet is often overlooked because it does not arrive with certainty or permanence. Gnosis, in this sense, is not a belief you hold. It may be a way of seeing that cannot be reduced to words. It does not accumulate. It reveals. This is where identity starts to loosen, not disappearing, not erased, but no longer as rigid. The sense of self becomes less fixed, less confined to a single narrative. Reality too begins to feel different. Not something you passively accept, but something you are constantly perceiving, interpreting, and, at times, seeing more clearly. And this is where it becomes quietly transformative. Because if truth is something you experience directly, then it cannot be taken from you. But it also cannot be stored in the way beliefs are stored. It must be seen again and again. You may have sensed this before, a moment where everything felt aligned, where nothing was missing, and then it slipped away as quickly as it came. Not because it was lost, but because attention moved. So the movement is not toward acquiring something new. It may be toward noticing what is already present, without the usual layers that obscure it. And this brings everything back, not as a conclusion, but as an open question that remains. If the kingdom is already here, and if what you seek is already within you, then the direction itself begins to dissolve. The question is no longer where to look. It becomes whether you are ready to truly see it.